Everyone, welcome to my channel. Marina here, and as always, it's a pleasure to come to you in another video. In this video, I'm going to be wrapping up the conversations that we've been having in the last little while, just talking about resumes and cover letters and the job search process in Canada. I hope that the people who requested that kind of content, I hope you learn from it. In this final installment, I'm going to be answering a couple of questions. So a couple of days ago, I put on my community tab asking people to ask questions that they have about the resume, job search, cover letters process in Canada. There were not a lot of questions, but I'm going to be answering the ones that have come in and some of the pending comments on the previous videos that I have done about the resume and career and job search in Canada. Hopefully you're going to learn so much more from this video as well, so definitely keep watching. If you're new here, welcome. It's so nice to have you here. And if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. So jumping straight into the questions. I'm going to be reading them off my laptop. It is to my left. So you're going to see me look to the side. That's what I'm doing. Okay. So the first question says, what is the best and the proper method for a Canadian style resume? Does work experience come right after the introduction, or does educational background? If you go back to the video that I did about resume mistakes that people make, I did mention that as far as both the two, your work experience and your education is covered, you will be fine. There is no hard and fast rule about what comes before the other. But from a personal preference standpoint, which I reiterated in that video, and I'm going to say it again, it is a personal preference. I would like to see education first. So after you do like your professional profile, your professional summary, I'd like to see your education, your certification. I'd like to see all of those things and then your experience. For me, I just look at it like, okay, what is the foundation upon which all of your experience is built on? Or even if you have education in a different area from some of the work experiences you have, what formal training, what formal education do you have that your experience is built on? So that's why it's a personal preference for me. I would like to see education and certifications first before the work experience. Some other recruiters might prefer it the other way, but whatever you do, make sure that both information is adequately captured in your resume. So there's no hard and fast rule. There's no perfect answer for this. But personally, I prefer to see education first, okay? If you're a recruiter and you're watching this video, if you have a different preference, please leave that in the comment section. It would be nice to get additional perspective just so that people can get a range of perspectives, okay? This is mine. You're more than welcome to share yours. So the next question says, what really attracts employers in Canada for a new immigrant with no Canadian experience? I think a lot of times this comes down to your ability to highlight your transferable skills. Are you going to be applying for roles that are in similar areas as what you have previous experience in? Even if you don't have Canadian experience, what are your transferable skills? What have you done in the previous roles that you have done, and how is that going to benefit the employer? So you want to talk a lot about your skills. You want to talk a lot about your achievements, about the things that you have done in the past, and how those things can translate to the role that you're applying for. In fairness, the emphasis on Canadian experience has really tapered down since COVID. Before COVID, it was really hard for employers to be receptive to foreign experience. Not a lot of people understood the whole immigration process and what really happens when somebody's migrating from one country to another to come and work. COVID took down a lot of those barriers, and employers are now more receptive. So if you're not getting a job, there's a possibility that it is not because you don't have Canadian experience. It's just to look at these other things. Are you positioning yourself properly? Is your resume done right? Is your cover letter highlighting the necessary information? So I would say there are still employers who prefer Canadian experience, but there's a lot more reception now. Highlight your transferable skills, highlight your strong points, put your best foot forward. Your resume has to be doing twice the work to get the attention, to highlight exactly what the role is looking for. Okay, I hope that answers the question. The next question says, is it legally right for a recruiter to openly reject a candidate on the basis of no Canadian experience, even with about 10 years of foreign experience in the same field, e.g. human resources? Is it legally right? So there are some provinces that are now beginning to frown at employers who indicate that they are looking for Canadian experience in their job postings. I know Ontario started to have conversations about bringing up legislation that would forbid employers from putting Canadian experience as a specific requirement in job postings. I don't know if that's in effect now or how that is going to be enforced. But is it legally right? I don't know if I can call it legal, but I just feel like there's something that is ethically wrong with that. You know what? Scratch that. I think there's a legal component to it because it is borderline discriminatory to say you are looking for Canadian experience only. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, especially as a recruiter, and talk about it from both ends. Personally, I don't think it is right for anybody to be rejected on the basis of Canadian experience only, especially in a field that is like human resources, where there are things that would directly apply from whatever country you're coming from to a country like Canada. Human resources, yes, there are differences when it comes to like labor laws and how they differ across jurisdictions, but there are fundamental skills and competencies that a human resources professional can use regardless of where they are in the world. So for a field like human resources, I don't think it makes any sense for a recruiter to reject somebody because they don't have Canadian experience. That is borderline discriminatory, especially for newcomers, for people who are new into the country. Where are they going to get the Canadian experience from? If nobody will take a chance. If nobody takes a chance, where is that person going to get Canadian experience from? So I think that is borderline discriminatory to reject somebody openly on the basis of no Canadian experience. But then again, to come back to this question, I would wonder, like, did this person go through the hiring process, reach the end, and that's where they're told they don't have Canadian experience? If that's the case, then I'll say the recruiter, the hiring manager, all of them were just being wicked, because from the person's resume, you would already have seen that the person doesn't have Canadian experience. Or did the person lie? Did you tell them that you had experience that you didn't? Because your resume is already going to show that all of your experience is outside of Canada. If they made you go through the hiring process and then reach the end and tell you it's because you don't have Canadian experience, then there was another reason why they didn't take you. That was not the reason why. I'm just going to be upfront and honest with you. There's another reason why they didn't take you. Because from your resume, they would already have seen that you don't have Canadian experience. So if they made you go through that process, they're not being honest about the real reason why they didn't take you. This conversation about Canadian experience opens like a wider conversation. Is that even a thing? Are there recruiters who are particularly looking for Canadian experience in Canada these days? The answer is yes and no. Unfortunately, we still have people who would only hire people who have experience from within Canada. And in fairness, there are certain kind of roles that, for somebody who doesn't understand the terrain in Canada, there are certain kind of roles that you will struggle with. Let me just be honest with you. There are certain kind of roles that you will struggle in if you do not already understand the terrain, you do not understand the culture, you do not understand certain things in Canada. I'll give you a perfect example. This example the person used is human resources. So let's talk about one of the growing specialties in human resources now: diversity, equity, inclusion, and well-being. Part of diversity and inclusion includes Indigenous relations. That is, improving the relationship between Canada and its Indigenous people, like the road to truth and reconciliation. There are big conversations around those areas that are happening. If I were new in Canada and I practice human resources in my home country, and I come in here and then I'm interested in diversity and inclusion, and then I want to go and apply for a role in Indigenous relations, it might be a bit of a stretch, just knowing that, number one, you're new in the country, you do not even understand what is the history of Canada and its Indigenous people. Do you have that idea? Do you understand what to say and what not to say? Do you understand? Do you really get it? If you do not understand the terrain, you are going to struggle in a position like that. If you do not understand what is obtainable in a country like Canada, you will struggle in a role like that, like Indigenous relations. So I see where for positions like that, it makes more sense for the employer to have somebody who has an idea of what's going on, who has an idea of the terrain, who has an idea of the Canadian workplace culture and all of those things. I see where it makes sense for Canadian experience to be beneficial in that area. But for an area like recruiting is recruiting. Yes, the nuances might be, okay, you're now paying attention to maybe collective bargaining agreements that apply to certain jurisdictions, or you're paying attention to labor laws, or what is prohibited and what is not in your hiring processes. All of those things can be learned. But the fundamentals of recruiting is basically the same everywhere. It is screening applications. It is following a benchmark, like you're comparing an application to something that you have set and putting the most suitable candidates forward. It is fundamental, basic across where you are. Right? So you see in these two cases, if somebody is going to be discriminated to say we need Canadian experience, I see where it makes sense for a particular specialty like Indigenous relations. But if you're doing that same thing in a role like recruiting, there's absolutely no wisdom in that. Honestly, it is unfortunate that there are still people in 2024 who are still insisting on Canadian experience. If you're an employer and you're not taking chances on foreign trained professionals, you are missing out a lot. You are missing out a lot on global perspective. You are missing out a lot on the perspective and the range of ideas that can come out from a professional who has practiced that profession in more than one country, in more than one jurisdiction. You are missing out. Canadian experience can only be gotten in Canada. I can't bring it from my home country, so please, let's take a chance, okay? Employers, take a chance. Let people be judged on the basis of their skills and their competencies and not their country of origin or where their educational experience is from, okay? Especially if there are skills that are transferable. You're missing out if you're not taking a chance on that. So there was one other question that came in. Somebody talked about that I mentioned that if you're switching careers, I was going to talk about how you can use a cover letter to highlight your skills when you're switching from one career to the other. I would have thought that the cover letter video that I did touched a bit on that. Like if you're switching careers, then use your cover letter to highlight your transferable skills, what you have done, and how what you are bringing benefits the employer. That's kind of what you would do. If there's no specific example about a career switch and a job posting, it would be hard for me to give specifics. But in that case, if you're switching from one career to another, you want to use your cover letter to highlight your transferable skills and talk about how the experience and the expertise that you bring will benefit the employer. You also want to use your resume in that case to highlight the skills that you bring that the job posting is calling for. Even though you used it in a different capacity, you want to then reflect those skills in a way that it shows how it benefits the employer. Like if you're the person who left this comment, please send me an email. It is hard for me to be general about this without seeing a specific example. But with your cover letter, you want to highlight everything that you have that is transferable, that is valuable to the employer. So that's how you want to do that. I hope that answered the question. If it didn't, please leave a comment below and provide as much specifics as you can, or send me an email and we can talk more about this, okay? Anyway, guys, I'm going to be using this to wrap up this series. If you have any further questions, please leave that in the comment section below. Before I let you guys go, I just wanted to touch quite briefly on the resume cafe that I said we were going to have. My idea of making that an in-person session was because, first of all, I wanted an opportunity to get to meet you guys. Like it would have been an afternoon for me to meet new people. We will share a meal and we will have that resume session as a very personal, hands-on session. That's what my idea was. But from the feedback, it does look like there are a lot more people who want this to be online than in person. You guys are taking away my idea of sharing a meal with you guys from me, but I'm going to consider an online option. So if you're still interested in taking part in the resume cafe session that I talked about a couple of videos back, I'm going to leave the Google form in the description box of this video. Please do well to fill your name, fill your details, and I will be in touch just depending on what the feedback is like. I'm looking at having this sometime in the month of March, so in a couple of weeks. So if you're interested, please leave your details in the Google form that would be in the description box of this video, and we can take it from there. If you see a question that's asked about being in person in Saskatoon, just say no and use the note section to fill in your preference. So it's the initial Google form I created when I wanted it to be in person, so that question is still going to be there. Just fill no and use the comment section to fill out the details and your preference, okay? Well, thank you very much for watching this video. You guys know that my channel is about all things settling into life in Canada. I've been dwelling a lot about careers and job search because that's a big issue right now from a couple of emails and comments and DMs that I've received. We're now going to shift into other kind of content. I talk about family, I talk about parenting, I talk about marriage. The Mister has been missing from this channel for too long. We're going to bring him back. There are a couple of conversations that I am dying, that I am burning to have with you guys, and all of that will be coming soon. So if you haven't subscribed, this is a great time to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification so you know when all of that content goes live, okay? Thank you again, everyone who has been very supportive on this channel so far. I hope you continue to support us and we continue to grow our family. Until I come your way in the next video, it's your girl Marina, as always, saying thank you and have an awesome day. Bye, everyone.